Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to the channel. So today I'd like to have a bit of a chat about what it's been like working in Japan for the past 28 years, going on 30 years. So I first came to Japan in the summer of 1996. So it took a while to get all the visas and everything worked out so I could start working. So I started working around the end of 1996. And I got a job with a company and they used to teach company classes. So I used to go to different companies like Toyota, Denso, AEON, Benz, different companies like that, and I'd teach classes. So they had morning classes, afternoon classes and evening classes. So it just depended. We were on like a fixed salary. I think it was about 250,000 yen a month, which is about now it's pretty well Australian dollars. It's 100 yen to a dollar. So, that like $2.5 grand, but 28 years ago, that was a lot different. Anyway, if it depended on how many classes you had and how many hours you were teaching. If you taught over a certain number of hours, you got more money. So it wasn't too bad. And you had a lot of time off during the day and that sort of thing, and travelled around a lot, spent a lot of time on trains and taxis and that, going to different companies. You used to have to get dressed up in a suit and all that sort of thing, so that didn't really impress me, but it wasn't a bad sort of job. So I did that for about 18 months. And then around June 1999, I got a job in the town next to me in Ishiki, teaching at the junior high school. So I used to teach at Ishiki Junior High School, and then on Thursday I used to get a ferry over to the island and teach at Sakushima. So I worked there for 8 years. Now, it was through a dispatch company. So what used to happen, or what still happens, each city has its own board of education. So they put tenders out they have contracts for people to come and teach English at the schools for a year. So it's a yearly contract. So you have these dispatch companies and they put in for the contract, they bid on how much they're going to pay, on how much they want, and the city will choose the best one. So now they sort of go for the sort of lowest bid. Anyway, back then, the cities used to pay quite a lot. They used to pay about 500,000, 550,000 a month. So about $5 grand, $5.5 grand Australian per teacher, which wasn't bad. So working for them, it wasn't bad. For the first year, I think I was on like 250,000. And then every year it went up 10,000 yen a month, so an extra $100 a month. So I worked for them for 8 years. So by the 8th year, my salary had gone up 70,000 yen a month. And then at the end of the contract, we used to get a completion bonus. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad. And also at that time, I was teaching I had a lot of students at home. So I was making probably 200,000, sometimes 300,000 at home. So I was making pretty good money for that time. But what happened, there wasn't many dispatch companies, but people worked out what was going on with these schools, and there was more dispatch companies started springing up, and then they were bidding on contracts, so they were all undercutting each other. So now, well, when I finished, the contracts had come down a lot. So where it used to be like, $5 grand a month, it had come down to like $3 grand a month. So they were paying me more than the contract was worth. So they didn't renew my contract. They were getting new people then, and they were paying them like 220, so about 2,000. About 2,200 a month Australian. And then summer holidays, we used to just get our same salary 12 months of the year. But then summer holidays, you're off for 6 weeks. They'd only pay them like 40 or 50% of their money over summer because they weren't working. So it went really bad. It went really bad. So after I finished there, I got another job and I was working for another one of these dispatch companies for a year. And then they lost the contract, so I had to get another job. So I got another job through this other dispatch company who were doing in Okazaki. And they were shocking, this company. When I went for the interview, they said, oh yeah, we'll pay you 20 yen a kilometre for driving your car. The first pay, when I got it, I had a look, and what I reckoned I should have got for travel money, it was half. So I rang them up and they said, oh yeah, we decided that 20 yen a kilometre was too much, so we decided to pay you 10 yen a kilometre. I said, well, I'm not driving. You told me 20. You know, I'm not driving for 10 yen. I'd be losing money going to school. So they ummed and ahed and all this sort of stuff, and they said, oh, okay, we'll pay you 20, but don't tell any other teacher because we're not paying them 20. They were real dodgy, this company, so I was always really careful checking my pay slips for them. I didn't trust them at all. So anyway, I did a year with them, but then I got a contract with the Board of Education. So I was teaching with the Board of Education in Okazaki. So they used to pay about 300,000, so about $3,000 a month. So I did 8 years there. And yeah, and then the same thing with them. They had a lot of teachers with the Board of Education, and then they could get these dispatch companies to find teachers cheaper. So they went to dispatch companies. So a lot of us all lost our jobs there. So then after there, while I was working at Okazaki, I was teaching at a juku, which is like an after-school school. Students go at night and they study. So I started teaching there. One of my mates, he used to teach there. He was going back to Australia, so I got his old job. So I'm still teaching there now. I've been teaching there for about 14 or 15 years, and it's pretty good. The boss is a nice bloke. So I still do that. And so I've been doing that for about 14 or 15 years as just part-time, which is good. It's good money and it's not bad. Also, I used to do some part-time company classes, but then Corona hit and all that work dried up. Companies didn't want teachers coming to their company. They were scared of people catching Corona. A lot of people at the companies were doing remote work. They were working from home and that sort of stuff, office staff and that. So a lot of jobs got lost there. And it was pretty bad. The Corona really did a lot of damage to Japan. But now teaching English isn't as good as it used to be. When I come to Japan, teaching English wasn't bad. The conditions were pretty good. The money was pretty good. You could get along, you could get along pretty well. But now, these dispatch companies, they've just killed the business. They're stupid, Like, instead of keeping everything so they were making a decent quid, they all sort of started undercutting each other and the contracts come down. And now, when I first started teaching, like at junior high schools and elementary schools and that sort of thing, one of the criterions was you had to be a native English speaker. Well, now a lot of native English speakers won't teach at them because the money's just so poor, they can't live on it. So now they're getting a lot of people who their second language is English. And some of them, their English isn't that great. I've worked with people and they didn't know the difference between he and she, my father, she did this on the weekend, and like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be teaching English and you don't even know the difference between he and she. So this sort of thing has really done a lot of damage. So what the kids are getting taught now, I really don't know, but I think it's not very beneficial what's happened. So anyway, yeah. So it hasn't been bad. I still do some lessons at home, and I do some online lessons, and I just do a bit of part-time work. So I'm sort of probably semi-retired, I suppose. You know, I still do the Juku, the cram school. I still do it 3 times a week at night, and I just do some other things to keep myself busy. So it hasn't been a bad sort of life in Japan. I haven't had really bad working experience. Everything's gone pretty good so far. But yeah, I have seen some videos of people, and I was watching one bloke the other day on YouTube, and he was complaining because he was working as an ALT, like an assistant language teacher, what I was doing at schools, and he was complaining that he got sacked, So he'd only had the contract for 4 months, and he was complaining he got sacked. Well, he couldn't have been doing a very good job if he got sacked after 4 months. So, but a lot of them were like that. They didn't prepare really for lessons. They just sort of turned up and just fooled around, and it was just a bit of a mess around. So, but anyway, that's a bit of my work history. So if you got any, if you want to know anything, just leave some comments in the comment section, and I'll answer them and have a bit of a see what we can get you. But yeah, teaching English in Japan now is not as good as it used to be. It used to be a lot better. So anyway, that's all for this episode. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, that's all for now.